I am so thrilled to be here with you folks. I'm so thrilled to be here with Tapestry. I kept on telling the women at my table, you're going to love the food because they've never been here before, and you're going to love Tapestry. And I don't know what the accommodations are like where you guys are at, but if you've got a thin mattress, just concentrate on the food. Concentrate on the food, because the food and Tapestry, it's going to be awesome. I am thrilled to be here with you guys tonight because I love women. I love God's word. This is the perfect combination. And let me just start off by telling you, I am a huge fan of my husband, Roger. I'm a huge, huge fan. And a couple of band members are too, which is awesome. But he gives me the best stories. And it may sound like I'm being disrespectful. I just need you to know I've got permission to tell every single story, and he's totally okay with it because he's man enough to take it. Let's just put it out there, okay? That's why we love our men, right? We love our men. Okay, so before Roger and I were married, we're a blended family. We've both been married before, but he is an awesome dad. He is a Disneyland dad, but that's just because his kids live with him 365 a year, and he still takes them to Disneyland 4 times a year. I mean, the man, yeah, okay. But Roger is also kind of a typical guy, and we have this term in our house called looking with boy eyes and looking with girl eyes. Anybody else is home afflicted by this disease? Okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me explain. Mom, there's no milk. Really? Because I was at the store this morning and bought 2 giant gallons because we had teenage boys and they would drink that like this was the last thing they were ever going to consume on earth. Mom, there's no milk. Really? Are you sure? Because I'm going to be pretty upset if I have to come downstairs and point out the milk. No, we've totally looked. We asked Dad. He looked. There is no milk in the house. So, of course, where is the milk? Eye level, directly standing in front of them, right? And people think I'm exaggerating. So okay, thank you. I'll still tell you the funny story, but I'm glad you're with me, okay? So this is a story that I heard from other people in the church where we were going. And they said when Jeremy, which is just Roger's son, was a baby, Roger had been out after church talking with some people, like you do on Sunday morning, chatting with people. And suddenly he remembered he needed to go get Jeremy from the nursery. So he goes to the nursery. It's all closed up. There's no Jeremy. He's freaking out. Of course, he's a good dad. He's freaking out, right? So he's running up to people and saying, have you seen Jeremy? And then running to the next person, have you seen Jeremy? He is absolutely frantic. And then our pastor's wife took him by the shoulders and said, Roger, who's in your hands? And pastors' wives don't lie. So I am probably the exact opposite. I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to miss anything. I'm the mom. I'm the person right now in charge at my office because I'm the boss, which is frightening beyond measure. I'm the bottom line in a lot of situations. And so I need to have control over those situations. Okay, that sounds awful, but it's true. Okay, so I may be slightly a control freak, but I think that people have put me in that position in some ways. And so I am a list maker. I make huge, long, any other list makers here? Okay, I love you. Okay, awesome. Now, I just need to know if you're as crazy as I am. Come with me, people. It's fun over here in the crazy land. If I do something that wasn't on my list, thank you. You write it down and you cross it off. I never cry on Friday nights, but it may happen tonight, ladies, because you are my people. I love this. Okay, can I make you feel less crazy for doing that? Or when somebody says, did you just write that down and cross it off? You say, yes, I did, because science proves there are more endorphins in crossing something off of a list than listening to a baby's laughter. That's science, people. Which is a little frightening that we'd rather get things done than the joy of a newborn, but you could draw your own conclusions. Now, I am not going to ask you to raise your hands because this is just embarrassing. But she already knows where I'm going. So you have this beautiful list, and you've marked everything. I mean, like, it's a gorgeous list. Everything's marked off. Everything's done. It's the best day of your life. You just casually leave it out for other members of your family to just look at and gaze upon with admiration. Now, has anybody ever said, good job, Mom, that's no, nobody in the history of mothering has ever heard those words, good job, Mom, you got your whole list done. But I need recognition, like this was a big day, I got a bunch of stuff done. And so it's the same satisfaction you get when you clear out your email. Some of you have not done that since you had AOL accounts, I get that, but it feels awesome. But here's the thing. The list gives me a sense of control over things. And sometimes when my life is chaotic, I go even more. I'll make lists of my lists so that I can keep track. I mean, okay, that's a problem. I just need to tell you that's a problem, okay? You need to know that. But I can do a list. I can make a list happen. Several years ago, I was talking with some friends who were also speakers, and one of them said, Kathy, you know what you should do? You should go see a stylist. When people become speakers, they go see a stylist. Like, you know, like you see Stacy and Clinton on TV, you know, those kind of stylists. I thought, oh, that's super fancy. I don't know. It doesn't seem like me. And she goes, no, all the speakers do it. Well, it turns out not all the speakers do it. She just thought I desperately needed a stylist. Okay, awesome. So I paid a lot of money to this person to help me look better. So I sent her a large check and pictures of myself. And when I finally met her in person, she said, you know, I've been praying about meeting you. That's never good. I'm sorry, it's just not. And I've decided I need to let you know that I cannot work with you until you lose 50 pounds. Thank you for being aghast and stunned. I appreciate that. And I'm thinking, wow, you're really good, because I'd never thought of that before, losing weight. That's awesome. What a great idea. You rock. So, of course, I was mortified, right? Because what else are you going to feel after something like that? And then another friend was telling me about Jill, who was a stylist. This was several years later. And I'm like, I don't need to see a stylist. I already know I need to lose weight. I got the memo. It's on the list. But she said, Jill is awesome. She works with all body types. I think you'd really, really like her, Kathy. So Jill and I had a phone conversation, and Jill says, I hear you've been permanently scarred. I said, yeah, I don't trust your people. And she said, I understand. I'll be gentle, I promise. It'll be fine. It's going to be okay, Kathy. So she and I happened to be at the same conference. And so she came up to my hotel room, and I showed her my clothes. And she said, Kathy, actually, you have some great things here. And she gave me a list. Okay, I can do a list. I can do a list of a few other things she wanted me to get the next time Macy's or Nordstrom or someplace like that was having a great sale. I also can follow a sale, so this plan is coming together. But then she gave me a few tricks of the trade, which now as a community service I offer to you, and you don't even have to pay or lose 50 pounds or anything. It's awesome. So the first thing she said was, I want you to get some small shoulder pads. And I'm like, okay, stop right there. I lived through the 80s. I watched Dynasty like everybody else, even though you said you didn't because you were a good Christian. I know you watched it. And I do not want to have giant shoulder pads. She goes, no, 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 little shoulder pads. She goes, not linebacker. I said, because I've done Joan Collins. I'm not going back there. And she said, no, 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 just little tiny ones because, well, your shoulders are kind of on the narrowish side, which is the nicest possible way to say the rest of you's kind of on the widest side, but I'll take it. We're good there. And then she gave me some Hollywood tape. Do you guys know what this stuff is? Okay, so this is double-sided tape that you can use to keep your clothes a little more Gidget than Basic Instinct. So if you're, just to keep you kind of covered up and tucked in and done whatever you need to do. And then she handed me the Spanx, which at the time, I had no idea what they were. This was like probably 8 years ago. And everywhere I go, somebody's like, I've never heard of Spanx. So this is the biggest community service project I can do. Let me tell you what Spanx are. If your best friend could not fit into her jeans yesterday and could today, it's not the paleo diet, okay? It's just not. Spanx are magic pantyhose that keep everything tucked in, pushed up, and where it's supposed to be. Now, the only problem is if you get a run in Spanx, okay? Because you pop out. It's like a Pillsbury pop in front. Yeah, it's like a goiter that follows you around wherever you go. And if I'm speaking, I have to warn the front row because things could be shoving at them. It's not good. So when I have a really big speaking engagement, I double spank, okay? And when I was at the same event speaking as Beth Moore, triple spank. Everything had to be pushed up, pushed out, wherever it needs to go. And then finally, she hands me these two things that look like rubber chicken cutlets. Where do you think those are going? She goes, well, they go in your bra. And I'm like, I haven't stuffed since junior high. We're good, okay? She goes, no, it's not to make your bust line look bigger. It's to keep it from hanging down around your ankles. I was so insulted. So I only took 3 pair. So Roger's at this conference with me, and he comes up and he's like, how you doing? I said, I'm fine. She was very sweet. It was okay. And then he sees all my new accoutrements on the bed. And he said, so what you're telling me is I'm going to be getting dressed with Mr. Potato Head every day. Which is so not fair because all they have to do is put on a pair of jeans and pluck a couple nose hairs and they're good to go. But not us. No. So I have this list of things I need to buy. And a couple weeks later, Roger and I were in Oak Ridge Mall in San Jose, and we were walking by, and he sees that Macy's is having a clearance sale. And in the first time in the history of marriage, a husband said, hey, don't you need to go buy some stuff? But I'm thinking, I want to buy a lot of stuff. I don't want to buy some, I want to buy a lot. And so I said, you know what, I'll just go back tomorrow because I'm running errands tomorrow, so I'll just go back tomorrow. That's totally fine. So, because the clearance sale was good. It was 65% off of their clearance. Right, it's good. And so I figured, okay, the next day I had to drop my kids off at summer camp, and then I needed to go to the Safeway, I needed to go to Goodwill, I needed to go to Home Depot. I had all these places I needed to go. So I figured I'll stop at Macy's first, I'll get that out of the way, and then I'll keep going, and then I'll pick my kids up at 2:30 after camp's done. So I get to Macy's, and the clearance sale has changed. It's no longer 65% off. It's 65% off plus an additional 40% off. So I'm thinking they're giving away free clothes with 5% back. This is awesome. But ladies, it gets even better. It was, I don't even know how else to say this. I'm not trying to be irreverent, but you who maybe are on the more curvaceous side will understand this. It was a Jesus shopping day. Like everything I put on, the pants were not 1.5 miles too long and had to be chopped off. The sleeves did not go down to my knees. The things fit. They were in turquoise and green and orange and brown, which are totally my color. I mean, everything I put on just felt like, wow, it was made for me, which is totally opposite than when I normally go shopping, which is me usually curled up in a dressing room in the fetal position, rocking back and forth, praying, but not good thoughts. So I kept trying things on. I'd go over to the little magic machine at Macy's. You know the one I'm talking about, right? You put the tag under there. Originally $49, now $6.95. I mean, it was incredible. I got beautiful, beautiful clothes. And when I left Macy's at 3:30 that day, my kids were in junior high. They were fine. I had 6 bags of clothes, over $3,000 worth of clothes for under $300. I mean, yeah, for a person whose shopping traumatizes them, it was such a gift. It really was. If I say miracle, you'll think, wow, your standards are pretty low. But really, for me, that's what it felt like. But I still had my whole list of other things I needed to do that day. Now, did I have to do any of them? No, but you know what? They were on the list, right? And they were going to haunt me all night if I didn't do them. So I get my kids in the car, and they're like, where were you? I'm like, Mommy's had a really busy day, guys. We got to go. And so we are flying all over town. We're running all of our errands. We're doing everything. And I get home, and I asked Justin, could you do me a favor? Could you grab all the Macy's bags out of the trunk? And he said, oh, don't worry. I already put those in at the Goodwill. Okay, I'm loving you two over here who are still, I love this because she's still in shock. That's awesome. $3,000 worth of clothes, as if I had a bleeding child in the back of my car. And if Justin had been standing about 6 inches closer, he would have been that bleeding child. I mean, I am driving. I am driving like a maniac. I am going over curbs. Pedestrians are flying out of the way. I mean, I get to Goodwill. They're lowering the gate. The donation box is up on the forklift. And all I could say is, no! But I got every piece of clothing back. Yeah. And that's why I love women, okay? Because if I had just said, and that's when I saved the drowning orphan, it's the same reaction. You guys get it. I love that. Here's what it took me way too long to realize. God gave me a gift that day. Now, to somebody who loves shopping and, you know, you're a size 2 and everything looks wonderful and you have to choose between all these great clothes. Okay, we can't be friends. But for somebody who's like me, who's like, okay, I'm just trying to be decent and trying to look a little cute on the side, and this is part of my job, it felt like such a gift. And I almost threw it away because of my list. Because of my crazy list, because that's how I roll. And, you know, I am not the only one who does this. There are things that cause me to crowd out my own list. And it's lots of things, like my own expectations. Like I was newly married at this time. I wanted Roger to think I was a rockin' wife. Like I was getting all this stuff done. I was working. I was bringing home the bacon, frying it up in a pan. You know, okay. I love that some of you actually get that reference. That's awesome. We're old. What can we say? You know, I want to be a good Christian, a good wife, a good mom, you know, and a good speaker, a good friend. Those are some of my expectations. And then I have some other unspoken expectations I've put on myself. You know, I want to, you know, there's the losing weight, there's the pull together, there's successful, the things you don't talk about usually with other people. And I've come to realize after so many years of really questioning, why am I doing the things I'm doing? Why am I spending time on the things I'm spending time on? And what has to happen for things to change? You know, maybe I'm working really hard at a job that I don't know if it's the right job for me. Or maybe, you know, I'm spending time with a certain set of friends and it's like, Is this really the group I should be spending my time with? These are the things that I have to question myself all the time. And sometimes it's not what we're doing, it's why we're doing it. What is at the heart of that issue? Are we doing what the world expects us to do, or are we doing what God expects us to do? And so this, as you get a little bit older, these questions creep in more and more, because when I was younger, I had this real fervor for God and the things of God. And then I got into this life of marriage and kids, and I felt like everybody else was writing my script for me. Like there were expected things to do the entire time. And if you did things this way, and there was a time where if you were a Christian, you had to homeschool. And I mean, we've homeschooled, private schooled, and public schooled, and ignored. I mean, we've done everything. We've done everything when it comes to that. And the expectations are huge sometimes. Or maybe it's the kind of job or where you're going to church. What are the expectations that are being put on you? And I just want to be clear, ladies. Can we agree? This is a guilt-free weekend. Okay? This is guilt-free. If you left with 3 kids, you're coming home to 3 kids, okay? They may not be the same ones. It doesn't matter. They're going to handle it over there. We're going to sit here and sit at the feet of God, and we're going to learn. But if anything comes across as a should, or I'm trying to please know that is not my intention, because I want you to leave here free, not burdened by guilt. But I do know that there are things that we often do to ourselves, even unconsciously, that are going to make us feel guilty. They're going to make us feel the things that God does not want us to feel. And I don't want you to leave here exhausted. And I don't want you to go home exhausted. And I feel like exhaustion comes from doing the things that we feel are the world's expectations, because God has not called us to exhaustion in our day-to-day life. God has called us to be invigorated because of him. God has called us to freedom. But when we're running around and doing all the things that we are the shoulds in our life, that's when we get exhausted, worn out, we feel guilt-ridden, we feel all these things we're not supposed to be doing. When I am working off my own list, or the list that the world has created for me, I miss the miracle that's right in front of me. I miss what God is doing when he's saying, pay attention to what is going on. What am I doing in your life? I can miss that so easily when I'm just concentrating on my own list, when I'm letting my friends who maybe are, unconsciously, maybe it's not them, it's just my expectations of myself. When I see my friends doing things, should I be doing that too? Or maybe it's, we all think that we're not influenced by TV or magazines. Can we just say, if it has to be influencing somebody, because they're spending a lot of money to help you feel the things that you're feeling, to buy the things that you are buying. And it's so important that we understand why we're doing the things we're doing and how we are doing, what motivates us. I want to read to you from Luke 10, verse 38, starting at verse 38. And it's a story you've heard a lot of times, but I'm hoping we're going to grasp it from a little different angle tonight. Luke 10, starting with verse 38. Jesus and his disciples were on their way, and he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Okay, now, is there anybody in here who can't identify with Martha just a little bit? Okay, I feel like I am split down the middle, Martha and Mary. And again, that's Luke 10, starting with verse 38. Because if Jesus was coming to my house, I'd be screaming at my kids to go sweep the bathroom. That we would be putting together a nice cheese plate for the Lord, okay? We would be doing that. But I want you to hear Jesus' heart behind his words. Because I don't think Jesus is saying to us, you dirty, rotten people, why are you doing these things that I haven't asked you to do? Hear Jesus' heart behind this. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her. Okay, so let's just examine that really quickly. The Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things. God has not designed us to go through our day worried and upset and stressed. This is not his design for us. When that is happening, it is probably because we have created our own list and ignored what God is trying to put on our list. And listen to what he says here. But only one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Mary has made the choice to spend time with me. Here we have the Lord sitting there in front of Mary and Martha. And Martha, of course, because we understand her heart and we get it because we are women too. She wants to say, here's what I have to give, here's what I have to give, here's what I have to give. And Jesus is saying, you know what I want? I want you. I want to spend time with you. I want to be in communion with you. I love you. I want you. And so often, I know for me, I feel like me is not enough. Me is not enough. And so I have to perform and I have to do this and I have to do the expectations and I want to make sure that everybody knows I'm trying my best all the time. But Jesus is saying, I want you. I want you to choose what is better. That's to spend time with me. That's to be in communion with me. Martha was showing love with her list. She says, here's my list. I'm giving it to you. But Mary only had one thing on her list. And I understand Martha's thinking so clearly. Her thinking is, what if something doesn't get done? What will others think? What will Jesus think? And I have to ask you today, as you are going through your day, as you're thinking about what you're going to do on Monday when you get home, let's think about this. Who is writing your list? Who is writing your list? There are things that have to get done. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we all go into a prayer closet. You know, that's not what I'm saying. You know, God has said there is a time for everything. And there is work, there is play, there is worship, there is everything. And so I really believe when I hear that God puts an importance on all the things that we are doing. But sometimes it's how we're doing them. You know, Martha was stressed and worried about many things, but Mary had chosen what was better. And when I think about who's writing our list, I think that there are three things that the world has to offer to write your list. And I think that for me, these are the things that if I am not committed to spending time with God and being submitted to his will, these are the things that are for writing my list. The first thing is fear. Fear is writing my list. If I don't do X, something bad will happen. It's all up to me. Nobody else can do it. And fear is the thing that, you know, makes us say when our kids come dressed by dad, we send them back and we say, okay, we're going to change. It's a control issue, isn't it? And when we feel like everything comes down to us. It's a fear issue. The next thing that I think can write my list, if I am not so careful about it, is guilt. Oh my goodness, guilt. If I don't do X, it'll be all my fault. I just saw like 6 women go, yes. Isn't it true? Guilt can write our list. So we look at what we're doing through the day and how much of it is, I'm the bottom line. If I don't do it, things are going to go bad. And then the next thing is guilt. If I don't do it, people are going to, you know, it'll be all my fault. And then the third thing that can write my list, and this is the big one, and this is the one that gets tangled up with the first two, is shame. If I don't do it, it'll prove that I'm a bad person, or it'll prove I'm a bad fill in the blank, employee, mom, wife, friend. If I don't do X, it's going to prove that I'm a bad blank. Think about that, because even though we may not write those things down, we think them in our head sometimes, especially when we're in tender and vulnerable places. If you've gone through a hard season in your life, it's so easy to let these things write your list. And this is not to make you feel more guilty. This is just to call out what the world is trying to do to us. And I think it happens so subtly, the world doesn't even know that they're doing it, except for advertisers. They totally know they're doing it because they have studied that these are marketing techniques. If you look at magazine covers, just, and they have the featured headlines. Next time you go to the store, I want you to look at those and say, which of this is fear, which of these is shame, and which of these is guilt. I bet you'll be able to categorize 90% of them. I bet you will the next time you go in there. Who is writing your list? Martha's was a fear-based list. If I don't do it, it's not going to get done. Was a guilt-based list. Look at all I'm doing, and my sisters should be helping because look at all, it's the martyr mommy syndrome. And then shame-based. People will say that I did not do what I was supposed to do for God if I don't do it. Look at who is writing your list. Martha. Here's my question for Martha, and the Martha that's in me and the Martha that's in you. Are you open to the possibility that God may have a better agenda for you today? Are you open to the possibility that God may interrupt your day with something that's not on your list that may be more important? And unless we're looking for these things, we're not going to find them. They're not going to come up and just bite us. And here's the thing. When we get into the framework of if I do not control this, the outcome will not be good, we've got problems. We have big problems. God wants your heart. He doesn't want your actions. He doesn't want your sacrifices. Hosea 6:6 says, I want you to show love, not offer sacrifices. I want you to know me more than I want burnt offerings. I don't want your cheese plate, Kathy. I want you. I want your heart. I want you to do this. I want to read to you something that I wrote right in the midst of a very difficult time in my life. I'm going to tell you about it in a second. This is from my book, Praying God's Word for Your Life. And this is chapter 12 called When You Are Worried. Worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength. Corrie ten Boom. I'm a selective worrier. I don't worry about earthquakes, even though I live near San Francisco, or anything else that is completely out of my control. What I do worry about are those things that I have the illusion of having some control over. My kids, my marriage, my work, my finances. Anybody relate? I'm like a dog gnawing on a bone. I work that worry bone over and over until my gums are raw. I worry that I haven't done enough or that my kids will do what they want, not what I want them to do. I worry that our money will run out or my work will run out. I worry that I will look like a fool. The more I worry, the more immobilized I am. I stay stuck where I am, working over that bone. I usually spend a couple of days in a worry pit, not talking to God about my fears. I always feel like I've made this mess. Now I need to get out of it. Anybody else feel like that? Yeah. And then I become that living cautionary tale of what Corrie ten Boom says. I lose my strength in the moment. As I spend more time studying and understanding the nature of God, I know the ultimate act of distrust towards him is my most natural reaction, worry. And the only antidote that is at all effective against that worry is prayer and reading God's word. As I get older, it gets easier not to go for days before turning to God. Yes, sometimes it still takes hours, but there's no reason to live for days or weeks on end worrying. Anybody in a worry pit right now? Anybody in that place? Hey, could you pass this to the woman in the blue shirt right behind you? There you go in the third row. Sometimes we get to the place where we feel like we have to control everything. And it closes off the possibility that God has a better answer. I wrote this when I was going through a very tough time in my life. And I was talking with God on a regular basis, not so much prayer, but barter. We were going to barter for my time and my energy. Because I had a book deadline. That book that she has, that was my book deadline. And it was coming at me fast. But the problem was I was also having issues with my oldest child, Justin. Justin has a lot of amazing, wonderful things about him. He is a genius. He's a genius. He's great with old people. He has so many gifts, but he also is on the Asperger spectrum, and that has been a big challenge. And he suffers from depression, and if any of you have people who suffer from depression, you know, getting them to take their medication is awesome, by the way. So we had all that going on, and he was being belligerent and disrespectful, not just to me, but to my husband, his stepdad. And it was such an incredibly hard time in our lives. If you've ever lived with somebody like that, Roger said he was a conscientious objector in his own life. That, he would just go limp and not do anything and not, I see a lot of nodding. Okay, we'll start our club, all right. So we had that, and I said, God, okay, I can handle the deadline. I can handle Justin. I'm feeling stretched, though, so nothing else, okay? I can't handle anything else. By the way, it's awesome to tell God what you can and cannot handle, because he's all over that. Then I got a phone call from my mom. Now, my mom and I are tremendous friends. We talk several times a week. But my mom is the most consistent person in the human race. My entire 47 years on this planet, when I've asked her, how are you doing? Her answer has always been, fine. Oh, sometimes it's okay or fine. It depends on her mood. It's one or the other. So I called her this day. I said, Mom, how are you doing? She said, not so good. I said, okay, tell me about that. And she said, well, that little thing I had on the side of my head? Yeah. She said, well, I went to the doctor, and they told me that it's a cancer, and the cancer is called a non-small cell carcinoma. And I did the dumbest, stupid, and some of you already know what I did, just by saying that. I did the dumbest, stupidest thing you can do when somebody gives you a diagnosis. What's that? Google it. Exactly. Let me give you some advice right now. When you get a diagnosis, go to God, not Google, okay? You will find no comfort in Google. You think you want to know everything. No, you don't. You don't. What I found out is that with a non-small cell carcinoma, that in overwhelming amount of cases, it's terminal. And if it's not, you don't want to live with it. And I was devastated, and I was heartbroken, and I couldn't believe it. And I am not an analytic. There's not an analytic bone in my body. But I know that when I'm in crisis, I need to do one thing. I need to make a list. I need to say, okay, so I needed to be with my mom in Sacramento. I live in San Jose. I needed to keep going back and forth. I needed to take care of her. I needed to finish my book. I needed to deal with the Justin issue. And I needed to do all of this. And I said, okay, God, I can't handle anything else, okay? Are we clear? Are we clear? I cannot handle anything else. Because I was wearing myself to the bone, running back and forth, trying to deal with Justin, who, his whole attitude in life was, and trying to write this book about prayer, And then I got home from Sacramento one day, and Roger said, I'm taking you to the doctor. I'm like, it's just a little cough. I'll be fine, as I'm hacking up a lung. And I get to the doctor, and the doctor said, whooping cough. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's what Laura Ingalls Wilder had. Who gets whooping cough in California? Well, now apparently everybody does, but I was the trendsetter. I got to a point where I couldn't even read a book. I was so sick because I was coughing so much. To even sit up, to try to live, all I could do was lay in bed. I couldn't talk. I couldn't watch TV. All I could do was pray. That's all I could do. That was the only thing I could do. And it took me laying in bed, not being able to speak, not being able to look at anything, to say, okay, maybe God, I don't got this. Maybe I don't have this. And, I remember clearly feeling God's presence and him saying, you think? I just remember being so devastated and saying, what do I do in this situation? I don't know what to do. I couldn't organize my way out of the situation. I couldn't list make. I couldn't cross anything off. I just had to lay there. And so finally we got to a place where I could talk, and Roger got me downstairs, and Justin was sitting in the living room, and we had our Come to Jesus meeting. Roger's like, a lot of these things I can't fix. I can't fix your whooping cough. I can't fix your mom, and I can't fix the book. But we can work on the Justin issue. So we got there, and we had our Come to Jesus meeting. And I'm saying, Justin, you have two options. You have two options. You can either change your attitude 180, or you can move out of the house. And in my brain, I'm thinking, that's living in your car. I don't know what else you're going to do at this point. You're running out of options. And it's the most heartbreaking decision a mom has to make. But it wasn't just for us, it was for him. Because we get to the bottom and there's nothing left, and I don't know what to do anymore. And I'm sitting there and I'm trying to act tough, but I am breaking inside. I'm saying, God, help me. I can't do this to my son. How do I put him out? How do I do this? But I don't have the energy to be in this battle every single day. And Roger and I have been praying about this. We didn't know what to do. And Justin, in a very small voice, said, I'll go take care of Grandma. We're like, what? Now, if you've ever dealt with a kid with Asperger's, you know they can't see beyond the end of their nose. But for him to say, I'll go take care of Grandma, there was a third option I'd never even considered. And God said, Kathi, I got this. I got this. You are worried and upset about many things. But you know what? There is only one thing. Jesus wanted me to trust him with my mom, with Justin, with my illness, with everything, with the book. Oh, man. And, I just think about, God, if I had organized that and arranged that, what would my relationship be like with Justin? What would that book be like? It would be so void of his fingerprints. The lingering effects from whooping cough, it ain't playing, okay? I mean, that is, oh, and by the way, my mom's cancer, non-small cell carcinoma, anybody who's familiar with this knows that 99% of the time it ends up in the lungs, and it's always fatal. My mom's was on the side of her head. And because after surgery and radiation treatments, we are now 2 years out. My mom is 100% cancer-free. Yeah. Ladies, who's making your list? Are we just trying to organize and manage because we feel like we're the bottom line? Or can we trust God with these big, hairy things? And can I tell you, things are not perfect. Justin still lives with us. We're having another Come to Jesus meeting on Monday. Pray for us. But I just think it's the fear, the shame, and the guilt that make me do what I do each day if I am not dropping to my knees and saying, God, I need a better way. And I haven't figured it out, so will you show me? Will you show me your way? And so I have some questions for you today. Are you just getting out of bed and springing into action because you have so much to do? Guilt is writing your list. Are you having your quiet time in the morning and then going on to live your real life? Can I tell you, shame is writing your list. It's writing your list. Are you finding out that what everybody else expects of you and then going and living that way? Fear is writing your list. But God says, would you allow the possibility I have a better today for you? Would you allow the possibility that I have a plan that you have never thought of or imagined? Can you imagine the possibility that I am your one thing and you are choosing the better thing by choosing me? God has great things in store for you tonight, tomorrow, Sunday, and even when you get home. I promise you that. God wants to write your list. And tomorrow we are going to be talking about what are all those expectations and what are they doing to us and how do we break free and live boldly when the world wants to close us in and say, here's what you need to do. How do we live brave and bold in the light of the knowledge that Jesus adores us, just adores us, can't get enough of us, is crazy about us? How does that change how we live? How do we live an uncommon life with the knowledge that when we can push some other things out of the way and we can spend that time with Jesus, he has an amazing life available for us. I can't wait to be with you tomorrow, guys.